Good evening, I'm Vivian. Welcome to today's Vivian Speaking. 大家好，这里是 Vivian Speaking.
I believe it's the beauty which makes it at all to have so many beautiful art.
你越紧张于表象，你越不会说话啊！你不去想怎么。
Often watch people and their behaviour as though they're chimpanzees.
People come to Tianjin and say, "Wow, it's really lovely here," and it is. But I guess I didn't appreciate how.
There are multiple levels of senior living based on.
I believe it's the beauty which makes it at all to have so many beautiful art pieces from.
How do you decide a life that truly matters?
It's going to be better, right?
No, I'd rather have you. You're more beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
本期节目邀请25年资深商业地产人、伦敦住宅地产开发商卡麦隆先生。2009年就来到天津的他，全面了解于家铺，跟随卡麦隆先生视角，带您了解伦敦金丝雀码头和于家铺的相似性。卡麦隆先生全面剖析于家铺发展模式，类比分析金丝雀码头，科学预判发展前景，回望金丝雀码头，联系于家铺实际。立足京津冀一体化进程，解码滨海于家铺发展的必然趋势，于家铺发展具有崛起的必备资源。从人居到金融功能融合，去定义新的生活方式，于家铺的崛起势必成就全新蓝图。
大家好，本期节目呢是 Vivian Speaking 金融街滨海荣誉的特别节目，我是 Vivian。那么本期节目呢特别邀请到了我的朋友卡麦隆先生。Welcome to Vivian Speaking.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
那么大家可能会问我，那么为什么本期节目会请到了卡麦隆先生？那么几个原因，第一呢，他有丰富的地产商的经验。那么他在过去的25年的时间呢，他在英国的伦敦还有马耳他都有过地产商的经验。那么同时呢，他在管理咨询方面也是经验极其丰富。他跟世界一流的公司，比如说迪士尼，都会有过这个管理咨询的这种合作。同时我请到卡麦隆先生的另外一个原因，是因为他09年就来到了天津，他了解于家铺的整个的一个发展情况。那同时呢，他也是出生在英国的伦敦，那他其实的出生地点呢，离我们今天要讨论的金丝雀码头呢非常的近。那这就是他同时了解金丝雀码头，他同时了解呢我们的于家铺。那么今天呢，我们就要跟卡麦隆先生一起聊聊这两个区域的一个相似性。
To relate it to Yu Jiapu, a lifelong friend of mine, an English banker, who in fact had married a Japanese woman and moved to Tokyo. He was about to move to Hong Kong, and it was him 10 years ago who said, "Oh, you're going to Tianjin, that's where Yu Jiapu is. Okay, can you please just do me a quick report?"
That's where it is come from.
So I went out, and I literally did go up to Yu Jiapu to have a look, to find out what was happening there, what the government was doing there, and give my friends some good advice, not just on a business level, but as a friend, what was the right thing to do. And by the way, as a banker, my good friend is still in Hong Kong to this day with his family, and Yu Jiapu was potentially such a big story 10 years ago, and still is today, that my friend and many people like him around the world would think about relocating to Tianjin just because of Yu Jiapu. There's still a long way to go with Yu Jiapu, but then it's a very, very big story, Vivian. It's a very, very big story. It's approximately, 16 million square meters of office and retail development, which makes it one of the biggest retail development projects in the world.
于家铺, maybe we have already developed for 10 years, right? How you evaluate this 10 years? And because I learned that you moved to Tianjin in 2009, right? So now you have this to stay in Tianjin more than 10 years.
Yes.
For the past, the 10 years, you know the growth of Yu Jiapu, and how do you evaluate it?
It's a really interesting story and an interesting question. People have got tendency, when they see a very large development like this, to just see where they are today and not really perhaps see the original dream, or see where it may go in the future. Coming from a property development background and having travelled a bit of my time, I saw similar developments in New York. I saw similar developments in London, specifically Canary Wharf, which was another financial centre. And I saw the 10-year time lapse over those developments. What I've actually seen in Ujiapu, first of all, the idea, the dream 10 years ago sounded magnificent, almost unbelievable. The development since then has been fantastic. Okay, in 10 years, Ujiapu is a small city as part of Binhai. I believe together there are approximately 3 or so million people, which in Western terms is a sizable city.
Yes.
It's a sizable city. Now, once again, with my objective hat on, Ujiapu's still got a very long way to go. But it's not correct after 10 years to take a development this size and judge the success or failure.
Yeah, I know.
In complete terms. Yes, we can do things better. Yes, perhaps things have gone too quickly in some areas. Some of the developments, the social development of the people, the infrastructure, has not all gone at the same pace. But these are things to be corrected, analysed, decide where you want to go to in the next 10 years, and just make them happen. If I can give you just a very simple comparison with Canary Wharf in London, in 1980, when the Port of London, the docks of London closed down, and the idea of developing that area into a financial centre had developed with government support and business support, it took 10 years for the first one building to be put up.
Wow.
The first building opened in 1991.
Okay, so you are saying that
Just
for
for
the
one
very
building.
beginning 10 years, the Canary Wharf, for
Yeah.
10 years, right?
Yes, and in fact for the next 5 years after that, because things happen in the world that are beyond your plans. Things happen, as the Americans would say, black swan events, where in the past year we've had the pandemic, we've had the COVID-19. Whatever plans you've got in the world have to change in the last year. And in 1990 there was a recession just in England, in London primarily, in the financial sector. So it hit that particular business development, that property development very, very badly. And I believe the original developer went bankrupt pretty much at the same time the first building opened, largely through bad luck. Okay, and after that, the first great tenant, Credit Suisse First Boston Bank, a very, very large American bank, had taken a part of that first building, half the building or the whole building, I can't remember which. And they had an interest in making the rest of the project work. And what they did, they financed the original people who had the dream, the idea, and even though they'd gone bankrupt and their family wealth had destroyed, the bank actually supported them to come back into business and make their dream come true because they liked the idea of their dream as a commercial development. Now, to put it in perspective with Ujiapu in the amount of square meterage of commercial property space, that's offices and retail together, is approximately 10 times bigger than Canary Wharf in London.
You mean how big if you compare
yes,
to the 2 years?
If you put all the building space together, I believe that roughly the Canary Wharf estate is approximately 1.5 million square meters, and I believe Ujiapu is approximately 15 or 16 million square meters. In China, we tend to do things on a much bigger scale. On a much bigger scale. Sometimes that could be a dangerous for development because things can go wrong. It makes the planning more sensitive, but also it's very exciting. You know, people on the development side are interested. And I will go back to your first question for 1 minute, because my friend it comes from not just himself, but his father. They come from an international banking family, and these people knew about Ujiapu.
Okay.
They knew about it. So when they asked me to look at it, it wasn't just a rough idea. They knew a lot about it, what the government had been saying, what the government was dreaming. They knew about the development of please excuse my pronunciation, but the Jing-Jin-Ji development of the city of Beijing expanding to the sea through Hebei into Yajiapu, Binhai and into Tianjin city. They knew about these ideas. What they did not know was whether the Chinese government and the Chinese people were serious about making it happen. And by the way, so for your benefit, when I think I mentioned to you before socially, we know that 9 years ago I had a chance to go to the construction site of Yujiapu, and I climbed up the buildings and went to the top of the roof and looked out. And as a property developer, it was magnificent.
Yeah.
A bit scary because it was so big.
Yeah.
Because I was looking as if it was Manhattan, but without the tall buildings, just the base of the buildings. But what I wrote to my friend, and I'll say to you now, is because I was standing, I can't remember whether I was on the 7th floor or the 10th floor, but roughly around that. And I saw the other buildings, some a bit lower, some a little bit higher. The bulk of the work that goes into a tall building is done in the groundwork underneath the building. So to get a building up to 7 stories, 8 stories, 9 stories, you've done the really hard work. Okay, the infrastructure work for streets, for roads, the electricity, the cables, the sewerage and water, etc. And getting the tall building up after that is comparatively simple compared to the earlier hard work. But the sheer size of it, Vivian, roughly 300 buildings, the basements of 300 buildings had been created, and I could see them. It was really very exciting, a bit scary. How could anything like this ever be done?
What you said, it's not just a working place, but but also there has a life there. So how long it was took to be a financial community?
It's interesting, but from the ground zero, 1980, 1990, the first building, by 2000, it was becoming a success.
2000.
Okay, by 2010, people just think it's interesting, people just think it's always been there.
Okay.
And it wasn't always just like that.
Yeah, so
because from 2010 back to 1980, when there was just a flat piece of ground, it's just 30 years.
Just 30
It
years.
seems like a long time. But when you're creating a whole new city, a whole new part of the City of London, with the headquarters of Credit Suisse First Boston and 8 Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank and 20, 30 other great world-class companies, this doesn't just happen overnight. This is 30 years' work, a generation of people.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. And New Jiapu, I see going the same way. Political, then it's a government responsibility, but the other people have an opinion too. They can show how it affects them, how they can work harder. And perhaps for some of the people, I'm of a certain age where I've seen lots of things. But sometimes people have not heard that or have that experience. If I can just say to people, sometimes just have courage and trust. But if no one's told them what the whole dream is, then they don't know what the whole dream is, Vivian. So we must all show some mutual respect and make sure that we're all working together. Because as so many things, if people work together, more can be achieved. A lot more can be achieved.
Yeah.
But the base of Yujiapu, after only 10, 12 years, is actually quite magnificent, by the way.
I know, yeah.
You may be surprised at what I'm saying.
Yeah, because you just talk about the history of Canary Wharf, right? For the very beginning 10 years, just one building.
Yes.
But look what happened, in Yujiapu, right? And when you go up to one top of the building, when you look down, there was 300 buildings, right?
That was 2012, I can tell you exactly. It's actually my son's birthday. He was 2 years old. It was 2012. And if I tried to find the same place now, I wouldn't even recognize it.
Yeah.
Okay, so where in the development path that Yujiapu is now, is probably where Canary Wharf was about the year 2000. It looks like a success, it's going to be a success, but not quite a success yet.
Okay.
It needs more customers, it needs more tenants, it needs more people, it needs more parks, it needs more public toilets. It still needed all of these things.
Yeah.
And when I talk about the government and everyone working together, When Canary Wharf, in the early development stage, the government started improving the roads going from the City of London to the new financial centre, Canary Wharf. They created a light railway system by 1990, which is very similar to the light railway that goes out to Binhai. By the way, it looks almost identical.
Yeah.
And they also built a very small airport for private jets and for helicopters for some of these executives to come into London Airport and then not get in a taxi and go across London, but get in a helicopter and go across London. So the government put in some effort here to make it work. Then it was for the developers to find the money and do the work and make it happen. And it's for the developers to find the customers to go into the buildings. Once again, the government can help. Yu Jiapu, the MSD in Binhai, and the original government infrastructure there worked very hard in giving tax incentives to companies to come to Tianjin.
Yeah.
And that's very good. It has worked. I know a number of those companies that have accepted those offers. But if a tax incentive's for 3 years or 5 years, that's great for the business. But if your staff are not happy living in that area, if you're not happy with the school your son goes to, if your wife or your husband are not happy living with you in that area just for your job, then after 3 years, 5 years, they want to leave.
Yeah.
So everyone, the story has to go on. We have to keep working. And one of the great urban regeneration stories in my lifetime, by the way, and you may be surprised here, is a Tianjin story again, the Wu Dadao. The Wu Dadao 10 years ago was a residential area for very, very poor people. And we go to the Wu Dadao tonight. It's got beautiful bars, restaurants, if I can say, wealthy looking people walking the streets. The lights are all done beautifully, the streets are beautiful. This is a great urban regeneration program. 10 years ago, the old Minuan Stadium was just covered in sheets with barbed wire around it. No one could go into it. Okay, look what we have now.
Yeah.
Okay, these things can happen very quickly in China. We have so many people, good working people, and with government infrastructure investment, things can happen dramatically. Okay,
Yeah.
so Yu Jiapu as a financial city, which is the way I describe it, and Wu Dadao as an urban regeneration program, these are two great stories.
Okay, so like we just talked about the lifestyle, right?
Sure,
and because what you said is, I totally agree. Is no matter Canary Wharf or Yu Jiapu, they all kind of the financial community. So it's not only business things, but also they got life there, right? You need to, the whole space to involve your family's life there, right?
Yes.
And so what kind of, so when we talk about the lifestyle in this kind of, area, in the financial centers, so how you define this kind of lifestyle?
Well, once again, it's a good question, Vivian. I've been a businessman all my life. But before being a businessman, I'm a human being. I'm married. I've got a family. We have children. We have friends.
Yeah.
I go to work 6 o'clock. When I was younger, I used to go to work very early, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. But 6, 7 o'clock at night, you finish work and you have to eat. You either eat with your friends or eat with your family. Our work is very important because it allows us to have our nice clothes, our good food, etc., and nice places to live. But our family must be happy. Most people in the world are family people.
Yeah.
Okay, and even the CEO of a great company, of any great company that may be coming to Yu Jiapu or going to Canary Wharf, yes, of course, he'd be looking at the financial investment his company's going to make. That's his job. That's the man's job. We understand that. And his first consideration as he's doing his work is to ascertain, is this a good financial investment that we're making for the business? But he will also look at himself, his wife, his children, where they live, where they go to school, will they be happy to live here for 3 years or 5 years, etc., etc. And also, the good CEO will be thinking about his 1,000 workers too. Okay, because if these 1,000 workers are happy, and the 1,000 families are happy, and the 1,000 children are going to good schools, and they've got a good hospital, and they can be proud to say, I live in this area, then that man's making a good decision.
Yeah.
It cannot just be about business. The business does not live in a vacuum. A business only exists because people make it happen. Okay, it's human. At the end of the day, we're dealing with human beings, and also, you've got to have the customers come and visit your office. The customers want to see what kind of company you are, what kind of big building you're working, and what kind of investments you're making. And if you can imagine, if someone's going into business with another business, and they see all their workers, the receptionist unhappy, the staff unhappy, no one wants to go to work there, this comes across.
Yeah.
Okay. On the other hand, when you and I visit a company where there's happy people, it gives off a very, very good impression. It gives off a powerful impression.
Yeah.
Okay, and once again, we're still talking about lifestyle. It's the same with the city. 10 years ago, when we walked around the Wilderdale, as a property developer, I saw lots of opportunities. But when I walk around there now, I see 10,000, 50,000 happy people. That's the end result. That's the important thing. Okay, when those people are walking around with their children, their grandchildren, buying an ice cream and going having a pizza and whatever they're doing, this is the Wilderdale success story. And I would like to think Yu Jiapu will go the same way in the future.
The future of Yu Jiapu.
Yu Jiapu.
Yeah.
I see it very much. As the last 10 years, I can see the next 10 years carrying on an upward curve as the more buildings get finished, more newcomers like the Juilliard School coming in, good quality names, interesting names. And it's surprising because I've mentioned Juilliard School 2 or 3 times, but it's such a world-class name that people think, that's interesting. There may be other things going on, we should do a bit more investigation. So these things are important, albeit it's not directly aligned with business. It's a sign of quality, prestige. And I do see Yu Jiapu, along with the whole China economy and the Beijing policy of even greater urbanization than what we've already had. We've had a great deal of urbanization in China over the last 20, 30, 40 years. We still have another 10, 20 years of that to go. From what we're hearing from Beijing, from the Prime Minister, from the President, they're still talking about 100 million people, 200 million people, 300 million people becoming urban people. These are enormous numbers, Vivian. It's an enormous story. It's a very, very large story. And I would see Yu Jiapu being part of that story, but a very successful part of that story. Yu Jiapu is not just part of 100 million people coming into cities. Yu Jiapu is at the very top of the pyramid as being a financial centre supporting Beijing. In the same way that Canary Wharf is a financial centre supporting London, I see Yu Jiapu as a financial centre supporting Beijing. If the Beijing government and the Tianjin city government carry on with that support program, and if I can say, as a foreigner, a bit more opening up for the financial companies of the world. My friend in Hong Kong, after 10 years, he's still there waiting. And I know there are hundreds and hundreds of people like him around the world, that if a new financial centre really does open up supporting Beijing, they all want to know more about it.
Okay.
And that's a sign there's going to be a success story there.